Hello and welcome to PS4 O'Clock, where I'll be talking to David Mickleham about Metal Gear Solid 5's latest PS4 gameplay demonstration. Hello everyone, it is Leon here and I am with
Meeks,
who is our resident Metal Gear Solid expert. Now this is Metal Gear Solid 5 on PS4, which has come out of TGS. But this is a gameplay demo that followed on after a nighttime mission, which is essentially the same area. It seems to be their kind of demo area. But they've showed it off during the daytime, showing Snake infiltrating this base, which is a US naval prison facility in Cuba, which you'll see on its map. And it shows off the sort of the new open direction and quite sort of fast action-based sort of stuff that they're trying to do with Metal Gear Solid 5. It does seem like sort of familiar, but also quite a departure.
Yeah, that was one of the things. I think this base is actually called Camp Omega, where we saw it from the original Ground Zeroes trailer that's where Snake has to infiltrate to rescue a young kid called Chico, who was in Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. Now, what really struck me with this demo and the other kind of rainy demo is what you touched on now back there, was how much more fluid it is in Metal Gear Solid 4. I think there's a real... one of the benefits of the Fox engine seems to be really giving everything a real solidity, kind of rooted in obviously very advanced physics.
Yeah.
You can just see how Snake kind of transitions his weight when he's like jumping over something, or you know, like when he clambers out of this truck in a second, or kind of how guards now crumple on top of each other. It seems much more governed by kind of physics systems in the old games, which always kind of traditionally used a very Japanese kind of hand-drawn animation cycle. You
can still see elements of that in there. Like, I find it quite strange when he runs. He's sort of this kind of like fixed, almost sort of like cycling animation. I mean, there's a much greater interaction with the environment, like you say, and with guards and how he jumps and throws himself about. But there's still quite a kind of Kojima-y solidity to when he walks. You watch, it's almost like he's sort of being operated by rods under the ground.
Even jumping, which I should say is a new thing for the series, because you've never been able to physically jump over a box before, so...
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be taking on a lot of kind of modern kind of gaming ideas.
I mean,
like
it certainly seems that if we'll see it shortly, enemy tagging, which is obviously borrowed from the likes of Splinter Cell and Hitman and Absolution, I should say, with the kind of that sort of predator vision, which will make sense as well, because you've no longer got the Soliton radar, which kind of helped you spot enemy patterns in Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2. Instead, you've got kind of this big radar gizmo box thing for which lack of total terminology.
Quite a few times here. I mean, that is all the interfaces change. You don't have the sort of the classic the little side boxes that used to scroll up and down. I mean, they're still there when you're using weapons, but you've got more of a radial kind of approach now, and this metal box, which is your map, it's your sort of your briefing, your sort of all your information.
I can't believe how good the lighting is. The lighting is absolutely exceptional.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a shame really that it's such a poor feed,
yeah.
The solidity of the environment, like say in the rainy demo, you can see the sort of the glistening cloth flapping in the wind when there's like a storm happening. But like I say, the lighting here is sort of amazing.
Yeah, Metal Gear Solid's always loved like billowing like fabric. Like I remember on this shit from Metal Gear Solid 2, when you're fighting Olga, you can actually shoot away like the like flaps of a big tarpaulin to kind of shoot her.
I mean, it's interesting watching this for the millionth time now, how much it does actually feel a bit like Splinter Cell and a bit like Far Cry, and I'm wondering sort of how much it will feel familiar for taking on such modern kind of
It's
ideas.
ironic because the original Metal Gear Solid also essentially created almost the stealth genre and influenced everything that would come now, so it's kind of gone full circle, and this is now
just say here
adapting.
You saw when we grabbed that guard there, or when he grabbed that guard, there were 3 options. There's now a third option, so as well as being able to kill or knock the guard unconscious, you can interrogate. You can also ask him to shout out for other people.
I know that is a new feature, because you could interrogate in the past.
I mean, I think he's been interrogated here, but apparently you can get them to go oi and get their mates to come over.
Those faces are excellent. Just like the animation, even on that soldier's kind of lip syncing, just looks much more.
Well, this is the production line they set up with the Fox engine, isn't it?
Because they've really gone hard in motion capture as well, haven't they? Even kind of facial performances.
But the full body scanning, the face scanning, they get these high def kind of assets in a couple of minutes, as opposed to sort of hours of crafting. They've shown off before, like members of Kojima Productions just standing in front of the cameras, a couple of clicks and a few pictures, and they're in the game looking incredible. Now
that is a very Splinter Cell movie. You never used to be able to carry enemies on your shoulders, where you just have to drag them from like their legs or their arms.
Get a little bit worried, because that's one thing in Splinter Cell that felt like a bit like busy work, was carrying bodies around and having to hide them. You can see here again more of the map. I'm not sure what some of these options do, but we'll see later on, you can call in a helicopter. Clearly the map is going to be your sort of main interface and your main kind of sort of communication with the world outside of actually, obviously being in it.
But it's clear just seeing the kind of scope of this base. It's much more open than really any environments we've seen before. Metal Gear Solid 4 kind of hinted at a more kind of open playground and a more expansive design. Certainly in the kind of second South American mission where you have got these like big kind of open fields, but essentially there's still just a lot of interconnected kind of small corridors, because there's a loading screen with every new environment in past Metal Gear games, which doesn't seem to be the case here. It does generally just seem to be one big sprawling mass. And
this does seem to be more of a kind of tutorial level, because we saw at the beginning Ground Zeroes was one of the missions, and something that came out of TGS as well was that the sort of Ground Zeroes is kind of this the tutorial to prepare you for these more open missions.
Yeah, now I think we're all still semi-confused about how structurally that's going to work. Are they both going to be on the same disc? Is Ground Zero going to be released digitally before the Phantom Pain?
I think the language Kojima used was a prologue, but yeah, as you say, how that dovetails into everything.
Because you could almost see, if you look at Metal Gear Solid 2, you could see the tanker sequence is the prologue to the big shell, that kind of teaches mechanisms. It could be something like that. It could be like a kind of demo, glorified introductory chapter, or it could be its separate entity and released digitally on, through PSN. That's yet to come alight.
Find out, yeah. So we'll see in a second him calling up a helicopter. I think he did it in a second. I can't remember now. But the way the helicopters work is you have a choice of landing zones, and there are sort of safe ones and dangerous ones, and you can sort of. I think it's mentioned before when they first showed it off. You could call in a helicopter; it could be shot down. And what you'll see here is that he has a choice of landing zones, and decides to choose a closer landing zone, but that's actually more dangerous. So here's a map. Obviously, you can see here we go. He's going to call in a helicopter. The red circle is a more dangerous area, but it's closer to Snake's current location. Snake is the white triangle there. So actually, there's two closer helicopters. The white circle just on the right is the nice safe one, but it's miles away. So obviously, that's your risk and reward basically.
It will really be interesting to see how expansive these environments truly get, because I think what we saw at E3, where they actually sped up, it almost looked Red Dead-esque in terms of that kind of Afghan desert and the scale of it. But Kojima's already said that there will be more linear missions where you'll still be given some choice, so you might have to assassinate a target, but the kind of methods you use to implement that will be up to you. But I think it'll be a balance between really big expansive environments, perhaps smaller, I say smaller environments, but maybe like this camp.
Just seeing here, so we saw when that guard popped up, there was it slows down for a second. This is something Kojima's calling high speed mode, which essentially is like a
QTE.
Yeah, like a bullet time thing. So if you get spotted, you get like a brief moment of slow mode to take a guard down.
It's interesting actually, because you can still see it uses that kind of CQC system we've had since Metal Gear Solid 3. That's a system was initially it was kind of designed by a kind of Japanese military expert. They actually took many of the features out in the MG2. It was originally much more complex, so I'm wondering if we might see a return to like a kind of more complex combat system.
Well, the thing that I remember CQC introducing was it made stealth more aggressive. You weren't hiding all the time. You could essentially bum rush someone and CQC him into the ground and run off. And we're seeing a lot of that kind of happening here, where this is it's very fast, it's very aggressive, it's quite unlike sort of normal Metal Gear games. This is normally what you're told not to do. And it's interesting seeing this effect here as well, like around these sides.
Burn cigar.
It's kind of like like a celluloid, like burnt film, instead of the normal kind of blood splatters. It'd be interesting to see how far they push that. There's some more of that high speed mode. So it gives you like a split second window, basically, to not be seen, to take out a guard, to react to something.
It's something Splinter Cell has done in the past. To be honest, it's something that all the old Metal Gears have had. You used to have a split second before the exclamation mark popped up to get them a choke or something. But now the slow motion mechanic is new.
I do wonder if this is going to be almost like the kind of, in the way that GTA 5 has been sort of everything you remember from the series brought together in a perfectly kind of modern presentation, making sort of like the best sort of realisation of what the game has always tried to be. And I wonder if that's what we're going to see with Metal Gear Solid 5, where it'll be everything you sort of remember from the series, but in a more contemporary package, and sort of making how you always remember Metal Gear Solid games to be, but they never actually
looks really good.
Yeah, when you play them.
Now just the kind of speed of gunplay and that kind of new diving
and the
move,
guards, the guards sliding into cover, you sliding into cover.
That's much more fluid than MGS4. But MGS4 was never meant to be a combat game. I mean, ironically, it was a game you could play in first person and shoot people in first person. But it was never really designed to be offer really fluid third person fights. I
suspect as well that they're showing off this very fast action paced stuff because it's exciting, but they will prefer that you don't play it.
Yeah, again, this is. Well, that was kind of odd how that guy went through the air. That is, that's not how I want to play a Metal Gear game. It's nice that the option is there, for the choice. And I think certainly a game that's courting more sandbox sensibilities needs that sense of choice. But nice. I will certainly be playing very methodically.
It's nice to have that freedom as well. Like if things do go wrong, that you aren't immediately kind of tied down by the sort of the stealthiness that you've lost.
The only thing that still concerns me slightly is Jack Bauer doing the voice, but I'm sure I'll hopefully acclimatise to that.
I mean, this is normally the kind of level of gunfire and sort of confrontation you'd expect with a boss battle. And to some extent, I think this tank is kind of operating in that capacity, but it's not.
Well, that will be interesting how you handle boss battles in a much more open environment, because traditionally they've always been in very scripted locations. I'm thinking of Laughing Octopus and that little hut in MGS. Well, I suppose something like Crying Wolf in MGS4 use quite a large environment, so it'll be they'll still have to artificially pen them into a degree, you'd imagine, to kind of traditionally support the level of scripting that usually does go with an MGS boss fight.
And what's interesting here is, I mean, this is a really great way of dealing with the tank, but you wonder how. I obviously don't speak Japanese, so I don't entirely know what's being said. But you don't know whether this is like an option, whether it's presented to you, whether there's other ways of taking out the tank. Was there a rocket launcher maybe somewhere?
So that was me saying holy and then cutting a swear word around and doing a bad Japanese accent.
And obviously you can ride, apparently from TGS, you can ride any vehicle, and I don't know quite what that includes.
Now this will be interesting to see how the vehicle handling works, because they've obviously never done anything approaching this before. No. They've had obviously scripted vehicle sections which are on rails and you don't control. So
this makes me think of the Big Escape at the end of Metal Gear Solid. Well, not the end, but the Metal Gear Solid 3 kind of run through the base.
The bite, the Grossingrad chase from the Shaghod, definitely.
But anyway, so there you go. So that is PS4 gameplay for Metal Gear Solid 5, which Kojima showed off at TGS. Showing an interesting mix of kind of old MGS kind of tropes and new kind of mechanics, more familiar mechanics from modern day gaming. But for it looks amazing for a PS4 game, despite this slightly shonky footage. It'll be interesting to see how the final game turns out.